Welcome back to the special edition of Hannity. We've all heard of Trump derangement syndrome. It's real. But now there's a new Trump-induced condition breaking out on the left, Trump travel anxiety. Apparently some liberals who like to travel abroad, well, they're suddenly afraid because they think the rest of the world shares their hatred of President Trump. For example, one friend group from California, profiled in the New York Times, recently took a trip to Mexico City, but only spoke to each other in French to avoid being identified as Americans. Here now with reaction is the host of Ask Dr. Drew on Rumble, Dr. Drew Pinsky. All right, Doc, analyze this for us because it seems like a lot of people jumping at a lot of shadows.
Well, let's think about it this way. Trump derangement, there's actually a husband and wife psychologists that actually defined the syndrome. They use psychometrics to figure out what this thing is. Clearly, it's afflicting some people. And the one feature that was universal in people who were really suffering from this was a sense of external focus of control. In other words, things happen to them, sort of victim. Think about that. And also associated with that is kind of a narcissism. And if you have a narcissistic personality trait, you're going to believe that the world is thinking about you. So your hatred, your panic, your psychotic feelings about President Trump are going to be projected out to the world. The reality is the rest of the world, first of all, mostly already hates us when we travel. They're not super happy with American travelers. And secondarily, at most, whatever I've encountered has been sort of confusion. If they have questions, they're sort of confused. What's going on? It seems like a lot. But there's not hatred.
Yeah, it depends where in the world you go, because a lot of places you go in the world, they love America. I mean, they can't get enough of America.
For sure.
You know, there's places that maybe a lot of people don't go to Lithuania, but they can't survive without us. You go to Romania, they love us. And quite frankly, I've been to Mexico since Donald Trump was elected. I didn't have any problem. Nobody gave us any hard time at all. But I do think that you're onto something, that people get externally worried. And it's interesting that you say about the narcissism, oh, they're all thinking about they know what my thoughts are. But what is it that Donald Trump is provoking that maybe other presidents or political figures haven't done?
Yeah, it's hard to say exactly what the features are that he maintains that really triggers this thing. But somehow he pushes right on that button. And it fundamentally underneath this, or let's put it this way, another way of sort of conceptualizing this is yet another mass formation or mass formation psychosis. About 20% of people really become hypnotized by the press. They become hypnotized by their social echo chambers, and they can be persuaded very quickly, that 20%, that they're in danger, they can be hysterical, they can be delusional, and to the extent that Trump derangement syndrome affects functioning, and I would dare say that having trouble traveling is beginning to affect functioning, then it becomes a real disorder. Now, what's underlying it, I would actually say that Trump derangement is sort of a symptom of other disorders, it's a feature of other disorders, although, as I said, these two psychologists have characterized it as a real syndrome. It is not in the DSM-5, and I know Minnesota is attempting to legislate it as a syndrome. That will not increase the probability that will show up on a diagnostic manual.
But isn't there an easy remedy for these people? If it scares you to go travel abroad because you're afraid of Donald Trump, maybe you could go travel to some other place, maybe in the United States, or just not travel. Isn't that the easiest remedy?
No, it's not the remedy. Guess what? Because what we know, contrary to the way we've sort of directed our youth in the last 10 years, the way to develop mental health and resiliency, particularly around obsessive thoughts and anxiety, is exposure. Exposure therapy, tolerable exposure. Ideally, we'd expose them to President Trump. We'd make contact with him so he doesn't become that cartoon figure that they've heard about in their echo chambers. He becomes a human being. He becomes somebody they may or may not disagree with, and that's that. But as it is, we tell people, you need a safe space. You can't be offended. You need to protect yourself. That is how you create mental illness, particularly around OCD and and anxiety type symptoms. And that certainly is a feature of all this.
Yeah, you know, there's some families, they just can't get together at Thanksgiving or because it instantly devolves to talking about politics. And there are a lot of people out there that just can't resist the idea that maybe they would just talk about family or sports or entertainment and just not talk about that. But exposure, that's an interesting theory on how to deal with it, because some people, I think it is very real for them.
Oh, it for sure is. And it needs, as I said, because it's sort of a mass formation, 20% become thoroughly hypnotized by this. About 10% are outside going, what is these people? What is going on here? This doesn't feel right. Much the same way as COVID went. And then about a 70% really doesn't care that much. They just want to get on with their life. They want, as people are often saying these days, they want the economy to grow, they want jobs, they want to take care of their family. That's the vast majority of Americans. And those people are not the ones staying away from their family dinner tables. It's that 20% that is hypnotized that makes all the trouble.
Well, it's that small percentage that wants to throw a Molotov cocktail at a Tesla that scares me. And I don't know, you may have some deep-seated thoughts on how to deal with that, but law enforcement and incarceration may be a good remedy as well. That's just my personal take on it. Last thought to you, real quickly.
I would just say we just don't bring consequences down enough. That is what helps people contain their behaviors when their behaviors are destructive and irrational.
Dr. Drew Pinsky, you're the best. Appreciate you joining us tonight. Really do appreciate it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.